What's going on, Drewski?
So, good news, STDs are climbing rapidly in Los Angeles.
Rapidly.
And there's been a weird, people have been bugging me to go do Loveline again, as though that would have an impact on it. I don't know.
Why are they climbing rapidly?
We don't know. People are just, as usual, they don't, the information doesn't change their behaviors. I think it's probably drugs and alcohol. It's probably lack of condom use, People are getting a little more reckless.
So once AIDS became something you could live with, they got a little faster and looser with the condoms.
Yeah.
And that's probably what happened.
And pre-exposure prophylaxis. Now you can take a pill that really reduces the AIDS risk, and people are getting a little cavalier about that. And then, of course, the LA Times wants to blame it on racism, which I found disturbingly problematic because it doesn't get at the issue that would help people. And
systemic
literally what they
racism
said. Literally
in the condom industry, Drew.
Yeah. And
with
so
the school to penis pipeline, the school to urethra, the urethra to jail to prison pipeline.
Urethral pipeline.
Urethral pipeline to school.
Look. There it is.
STDs in L.A. County are skyrocketing. Officials think racism and stigma may be to blame.
Stigma's always been in there. It's because people are afraid to ask about it. People are afraid to get help.
Who are the officials that think racism is?
I'm going to read this. If you'll.
Well, here's the deal.
You know what's weird too? It's like this. Somebody should tell the L.A. Times. When you guys are this close to blaming shit on the chupacabra, like in terms of your integrity, like when I see these, when I got to hear stories about God, what was the I Feel Pretty, the Amy Schumer movie, and it's like, a white a white non-disabled person should get to play the part of they're literally bringing in disabilities now, and they've jumped the shark to the point where I don't even listen to the LA Times. If LA Times says something, I would tend to do the opposite or believe the opposite. I mean, LA Times should strictly just report on earthquakes and tsunamis now. And anything that involves an opinion is completely out the window.
It's pretty bad.
It's useless.
Yeah.
I mean, they're literally giving op-ed pieces. Oh, I don't know if what if that teacher had a 44, then one person died, then 3? Would that be better than 15? Of course, it'd be quite a bit better than 15. You guys have completely jumped the shark. You should really just start talking about the fucking chupacabra because I didn't even, you know what I like? I like when a Mexican guy is getting on a rant. He's like, hey, man, they've jumped it. It's perfect English, everything. They just go to chupacabra. They go right back into the thing. They cannot say chupacabra the way we do, the correct way. How can racism... Well, look.
Okay, so
here's the whole point.
How.
You just start laughing now, right?
No, well, here's the deal. African Americans do have a higher issue with this, and part of the problem is they don't go to the medical system. They don't trust the medical system, and so they get more complications. And that's factually true, but that's an issue of the medical community need to rebuild trust with the African American community here. And that's not racism.
Why do they need to rebuild trust with the African American community?
Generally, African Americans don't go to doctors.
Well, isn't that their fault? What's that the medical community?
Well, there's been times in history where doctors have,
the Tuskegee experiment from 1941.
I'm just saying, there's been.
Oh, shut up, Drew. You're fucking bad as they are.
All right.
If the African American community doesn't trust the medical community, then they should work on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's not try to figure out a way to get the doctors to work on it. They're not going to work on it. They're sitting at a hospital. Let them figure it out.
All right.
Go ahead. Let the Maxine Waters handle this one.
All right.
She'll get taken care of.
The point is that
Drew, you're as bad as the Times.
Whatever the distrust is built on, there is generally tend to take care of it from internally and family and church and things rather than certainly mental health services. They're very unlikely to use. Yeah. But I think it's generally the case with medical services as well. And that's the issue. And it's not racism. That's just a cultural issue.
Yeah.
And,
who should work on it?
Listen, my profession likes to solve problems. If there's somebody that needs help, is not getting it for whatever reason, we sort of work on
how effective do you think you reaching out is going to be?
I don't know how you would do it even. Well, point is,
That's my point.
the point
Thank
is you need media. Maybe things like Loveline should come back and sort of try to rebuild a cultural change. That was my original idea with Loveline.
Gary, what was the story from the LA Times about STDs?
There's no
Maybe
story. It's just
crabs
gonna
are
piss you off.
racist.
Let's see. Northover, which is
Think
the name
about
of
it.
one
Nice
of
black pube patch versus a weird ginger. Where you'd really pop. You know what I mean? You'd be sussed out immediately in a ginger's patch. You know what I mean? So you get a nice black pube patch. You can go on for months. They may be racist.
What are you talking about?
Crabs.
Oh.
Racist.
Okay.
LA Times said crabs are racist.
Okay, got it.
Well, think about it.
Okay.
Go ahead. Ed Sheeran, you'd be sussed. If you're in Ed Sheeran's pube patch,
This is something we've not visited in a long time. You guys ever heard Adam's crab story?
you know how quickly you'd be
You heard this?
sussed out with the miniature comb?
Oh, well.
What? My crab story?
They've heard it.
They've heard my crab story. All right.
not recently, but yes. Let's
It
see
wasn't
here.
my crab.
I understand.
It's just a dude who I shared a bed with.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Officials need to evaluate what's called structural or systemic racism, the way housing or education policies may negatively impact people and their health. Studies have found, for example, that people with HIV who have low levels of literacy were less likely to follow their treatment, and that poorer Americans were more likely to engage in risky sexual behavior, increasing their risk of STD.
Okay. So that's not racism. That's
What about that guy from a few days ago called from Minnesota? Had a house, boarded out a room to a guy.
yeah, Paul.
Swimming in dough? Seemed like a white guy. Would this affect him or his roommate? I think we're talking about poor people. It's, by the way, racist to assume that poor people are just
I
black.
see. If they're saying that, then that's racist.
No, what they're saying is this affects poor people at a higher ratio than it does the wealthy.
It's always been that way.
I got news for everyone. Everything affects poor people negatively. They live in worse neighborhoods. There's more violence in those neighborhoods. Guess whose cars are older and not as safe and don't have as many crumple zones and airbags? Guess who doesn't get top-notch medical? And guess who, and by the way, who are prioritizing eating over education and things like that. So guess who is affected by this disproportionately? Poor people. Everything negative, poor people. So then they do a math. Well, who has more poor people? Asian people or black people? And they go, Asian people. Okay, racist. That's not a great math if you're trying to solve a problem. Because then because now your math is flawed because you're saying racism. Okay. So it's racism, and our president is racist, and he's anti-Semitic, and he's homophobic, and everything like that. Okay. Now let's take that, and let's do some math. This affects poor people of color. Right. And then who else? Hispanic people. Next. Great. And then who else? White people. Next. Okay. And then who else? Asian. And then Jew. Oh, hold on. But, at the Klan meeting. Shouldn't Whitey be on top? And then we'll get the Asian and the Jew underneath them? No. The Asian and the Jews focus more on family and education, so they're higher up. But wait a minute. Hold on. This is called systemic racism. If it's going to be systemic racism, let's get Whitey up top and get the Asian and the Jew. And, by the way, Africans who are born in Nigeria who've come here on their own, let's get them down at the bottom and get then the white folk up top. And then what about the gay community? No, they're doing pretty good too. What's the point in having these meetings? Let me explain racism. Whitey on top, not in the middle. I don't want an average gay couple's income to be higher than an average heterosexual white couple, number one. And I don't like these Asians and Jews hovering around at the top. So let's go ahead and, as long as we're going to make it systemic, let's do it right. Now, why is it, Drew? I've never really had a clear answer. It's like minority communities suffer. Who is there less of in this city? Hispanic, Jew, or Asian?
Who there's less of?
Who has a smaller community?
Jew.
All right.
Probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's next?
Asian.
Then?
Hispanic.
Okay. Do you know the definition of minority? What would that be, Drew?
Smaller population.
Okay. So when you're saying this affects disproportionately the minority population, then I'm assuming you mean the groups that are underrepresented. How are the Asians represented as far as the city council goes, or the senators, or the state, or the city at the local level? You think the Asians are represented equally with their community? I think they're very underrepresented, but yet they seem to be thriving. So how does this work? And then again, could we just go ahead and change minority to something a little less insulting to minorities? Because now it's confusing, because you say it disproportionately affects the minority communities, except for it doesn't disproportionately affect the minority communities. It disproportionately affects some minority communities, but not the others. And then Whitey's just in the middle watching a ping pong tournament, confused. So let's try to figure this out. And if the systemic racism thing is not working, then maybe we have maybe there are other channels to pursue.
Okay.
That's me.
Okay.
I like that. I like to live in a world.
Passage to piss you off?
No.
From the Times? This is awesome. Drew's scared, but go ahead.
So glad I brought this up.
Poverty or lack of opportunity may be forcing women to exchange sex for resources, leading to the spread of STDs, Northover said. There also tends to be a
lack of opportunity.
There also tends to be a mistrust of the medical system amongst African Americans, making them reluctant to seek care.
Yep.
This is the one I think is going to get you.
Uh-oh.
Certain neighborhoods may be excluded from access to health care because of geography or finances.
Geography. They're living in the bottom of the Grand Canyon, where everyone else around them is just they're in the Miracle Mile up on Wilshire off of La Brea. Yeah, they don't have access because geographically, where's County USC? Somebody should figure out how far is South Central from County USC versus where I grew up in North Hollywood when I'd have to then drive myself to County USC.
That's a lot further.
From where I live?
Oh, yeah.
But wait a minute. Oh, but I was born on third base with my white privilege and my pickup truck? Like, what? Then have access, Drew.
Oh.
It's starting to, these little stupid, access. They like to do, don't have or opportunity. Everyone has opportunity here. It's a great country. Get to work. Or, again, not sure. Systemic racism. These people have no idea how much damage they're causing to those communities. Being told there's systemic racism, the most bitter poison they could ever take. Go ahead, Drew.
Nightstand. NY.